Hello and welcome back to the Transfer Flow, and on today's episode, we're looking at the World Cup qualifiers, how Nigeria could miss out on the tournament, why Norway are the most exciting team to watch right now, Ecuador's incredible defense, and the task ahead of Carlo Ancelotti with Brazil. That's all in today's episode of the Transfer Flow. So it's Monday afternoon, which means that we're back for another episode of the Transfer Flow podcast, and joining me today is Neel Schiller. How are you doing, Neel?
Look, Patrick, I'm great. I'm having a very good time, and I can tell you're equally as excited. I can really see the enthusiasm in you today.
I love international football, Neel. I love
Yep,
it. I can't
I
get
know.
enough of it.
Absolutely.
I have so many rooting interests. I love my team, the Three Lions or whoever. I can't even. That made me feel sick to say that. Look, before we get into today's episode, where we are going to talk a little bit about the international football, we just want to let you know that you should be subscribing to variance betting, something we talk about quite a bit here. And I think as well that having an understanding of the betting side of it kind of goes hand in hand with the stats side of things. If you would like to get Ted's betting picks in your inbox, then you can subscribe to variance betting for £15. I think Hayden worked out something like if you were placing like £5 a bet or something, then over the course of the year last year, the subscription would have paid for itself, which was pretty good. Ted, I think, is going to be drastically upping the amount that he's betting this season from an amount that would make me wince to an amount that Ted would almost notice. Like that's how high the numbers are getting right now. But variance betting is really, really interesting. I read it, even though I don't really bet on sports. The other thing that we'd like to bring to your attention is, of course, that we've got a Patreon coming out pretty soon. We're going to be adding a third episode every week, going to feature such luminaries as Neel, Hayden, me, Ted. And we're going to talk about topics that you bring to us. So please do give us your questions. Drop them in the comments below, and we will be trying to answer them over the coming weeks. Continue to add them every single week. We're going to build up a big bank of them, and we'll let you know when you can subscribe to the Patreon in order to get access to those extra episodes. Plugs out of the way. Finally, time to get to my favorite topic. But generally, all we had to do was scour the entire globe to find 4 things that interested me, Neel. Where we're starting is CAF. CAF is always one of the more exciting ones. CAF right now, especially Group C of CAF qualification, extremely exciting. Do you want to give us the lowdown on what exactly is going on in Group C, Neel?
Yeah, I mean, there's I don't even know where to start. Like, I should say, like, even before the World Cup was expanded, it was 32 teams. CAF qualifying was always crazy because you had these insane groups where like there's like Egypt and Nigeria, and only one of them can go through. And so it was like always super exciting. Now obviously we have an expansion, which was, I think, generally went down well in Africa because you're like, okay, finally all of our good teams are going to be there. Except the good teams were like, nope, we're not doing that. So in Group C, we have Nigeria and South Africa, which in any case, so only one of them would get a direct spot.
Yeah.
And the other would at best get, the playoffs, but as I'll explain, it's not going to happen. But right now, as we record this on Monday, one day before the final round of fixtures, we have Benin in top spot because, of course, everyone saw that coming. Everyone expected that Benin would be on 17 points. South Africa, let's do some maths here. They have 4 wins, 3 draws, and sorry, they on results they have 5 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss, but they had 1 win annulled because they fielded an ineligible player against Lesotho. It was Teboho Mokwana. He was suspended because of yellow card accumulation. And the crazy thing about the story is, so they played him, played the entire game. Nobody saw anything. Like Lesotho were like, well, we lost 3-0. Happens. Everyone went home. And then the next day, reports emerged that, oh, you guys actually fielded an ineligible player. And so for a long while, there was just a question about, okay, can we appeal this? Because like nobody pointed out when the game was going on. So for a huge while, and CAF did nothing. And this game happened like almost, many more than 6 months ago. The decision only came last week from FIFA, who were like, yep, because like we're literally on the last round of fixtures now. They're like, yep, no points for you. That's a 3-0 loss. And so South Africa were first before, then they dropped to second, and they drew with Zimbabwe in the previous round of fixtures, like just a few days ago, while Benin beat Rwanda, and so there's a 2 point gap between them now. Benin first on 17, South Africa second on 15, Nigeria third on 14, and so as I was saying about the second teams in the groups, there's a bunch of groups in total, about 9,
Yeah.
and four of the best second place teams go through to the playoffs based on points. So because this group is so crazy, where there's also Rwanda on 11 points, even Lesotho have 9 points, and Zimbabwe have 5, which is still like way better than most other groups where there's like Eswatini on 3, Congo on 1, Somalia on 1, all that. So basically, like the spread of points in this group is so close that the second place team has no chance. Also, by the way, the second place team, we were gonna do like normally just add up their points, but then the fine people of CAF were like, that doesn't seem. I mean, that seems too normal for it to be CAF. So what they did is, we're gonna deduct the points you got against the lowest ranked team in the group, and then we're gonna calculate who's actually gonna get those playoff spots.
But in fairness, that's because Eritrea withdrew, right?
Yes,
so Eritrea,
but you could just give everyone like the 6 points against Eritrea in that group and do it normally.
Sure,
but or you could do this.
Yeah, because Eritrea withdrew from qualifying, so because they obviously finished bottom in their group, played 0 games, got 0 points. But yeah, so all these bottom teams might as well have not shown up. But that actually helps Nigeria, right? Like, as in theory, that should help Nigeria, because Nigeria contrived to draw both of their fixtures against Zimbabwe, which, to be clear, is not good. And so whereas other teams, like Burkina Faso, like slapped around. I can't remember who came bottom in that group. Oh, Djibouti. Yeah. They beat Djibouti like 6-0 and 4-1 or something. So they lose a +9 goal difference and 6 points because Eritrea dropped out. But now, so this is how complicated it is. So now we're in the situation, right, where in order to qualify automatically, Nigeria need to win they need to win either 1-0 or by more than 1 goal. Or they could win 2-1 and then get a tiebreaker like yellow cards or red cards. This is all if South Africa lose or draw.
Yeah. I mean,
so all those things need to happen for them to finish top.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, so tomorrow, Nigeria are playing Benin, which is a big game. Benin, basically, they need to win to be sure. If they draw, it again goes down to goal difference. South Africa win by 3 or more goals, they're through. If it's 2, then we go into the tiebreaker stuff again. But basically, like, Benin's fate is in their hands because this would be their first ever World Cup qualification. If they beat Nigeria, which is possible, given how Nigeria have been playing, they qualify. Mm-hmm. If they don't, then if they draw, then South Africa need to beat Rwanda, like I said, by 3 or more goals to be sure of going through. If South Africa draw and Nigeria don't win, then nobody gets the second place. If South Africa draw and Nigeria win, then probably get the second place, but it remains to be seen.
Even then, it's tough though, because like you look at the table now for the second place teams, and like with a win, Nigeria would go up to I think 15 points,
exactly.
Having taken off the 2 against. But there are already like they can't catch Burkina Faso or Gabon in the list of the best.
And I mean, with Burkina Faso, it's goal difference. So if they win by they're drawing, right? I forgot that. Sorry, yeah. But they can get over Niger. So as long as like Cameroon, Angola, and Congo, Sudan, those are the 2 games to keep in mind. As long as DR Congo don't win over Sudan and Cameroon lose to Angola, that's when the second spot is like more probable for Nigeria if they win. Does any of that make sense? No. Look, let's not talk about this. Tomorrow evening, check the scores apps and see who's qualified and who's finished second. That's all I'm saying.
Do you know the other part of this as well, going into this, is that Nigeria had to have like the Nigerian team flying back
Oh yeah.
from their game had to have an emergency landing. This was yesterday,
Oh wait, wait.
and to me, I was just kind of like, this is a Kalula Air situation for anybody who's ever flown domestic in South Africa. I was just like, yeah, this is getting more CAFy by the minute. Like
But do
whenever
you know what's
drama
funny?
can happen, drama will happen.
Nigeria had
Go
this
on, it
exact
could be.
thing. Like they had an airport issue earlier in the qualifiers against Libya. So they were flying to Libya. They're flying to Benghazi. I forgot what exactly happened, but basically they had to be rerouted to some airport like 400 kilometers away. And so they landed there. When they landed, no one was expecting them. They got locked into the airport for like 11 hours, and there was all sorts of drama around that. And then finally, so I mean, Nigeria have had. This was not World Cup qualifying. This was, I think, the last AFCON qualifying. But look, Nigeria have had a very
Yeah.
normal year. But that's like classic Nigerian football, right? Like, I mean, let's not even get into all the issues with their FA, because like they have tons of corruption issues. They have like financial issues. So I mean, this is not entirely related, but I was in Morocco for the WAFCON this summer, where Nigeria's women's team won a record 10th title, and so they were being coached by the former assistant, because the guy who was coach in 2024 was an American guy, and he hadn't been paid in months, and he had obviously disputes with the FA because he was like, guys, where the hell's my money? The players also weren't paid. They also had to do like protests before the tournament. It's like a complete mess. It's I mean, they also keep to change. I mean, probably because they don't pay them some of the times. But like, do you know how many coaches they've had in the last 4 years, or how many coaching changes they've had?
I have no idea.
Take a guess. 4
Four.
years. 5. And the guy before was there for a few years, but in 2016 alone they went through 4 different coaches, like in a single year. Like, there be a guy in for one break, 2 games, and he's like, nope. Another guy for 2 games, nope.
Like the Roman
So,
Empire, man.
yeah,
The
exactly.
year of the four emperors. But this is the problem is as well. I think that as an outsider, you kind of look at Nigeria and you're like, this should be a walk to the World Cup. Like, it really should. Like, even in this group where we're like, okay, they're up against South Africa and like Benin, who've been like surprisingly good. Like, they are still the second most
By
valuable
far.
national team in Africa after Morocco, apparently. I think that's debatable. But like the attack alone, like they've got Teller, Boniface, Osman, Tolu Rokodare, Chukwueze. Like you get down to like their third or fourth best striker, and you think, well, that's still like Terem Moffi or someone. Like
No,
like there's so much talent.
no, but that's the problem. It's like they have too many good attackers, and not. I mean, I'm not even like not enough good people elsewhere, but they just have too many good attackers. So like every single Nigerian coach, like the mentality is, how can I put as many attackers as possible on the
Mm,
pitch? There was one time, I am not kidding. You can look this up. I'm forgetting the game, but I have seen this with my own eyes. They played Alex Iwobi as the defensive midfielder
mm.
in like a 4-1-3-2 kind of thing. So it's literally 4 defenders, Alex Iwobi, and 5 attackers. Like, yeah, I mean, I think we'll kind of get onto this a bit more maybe when we talk about our next team. But like, the main thing with international football is to try and build a, as stable kind of platform for your best players to be able to shine. So
Mm.
you need 2 things, I think, like when we talk about tactics, because obviously it's not as refined as like club football, because these guys are coming for 2 weeks from all parts of the world, and they're playing 2 games every 4 days, so you don't have much time to do any like more intricate stuff. What you need to do is make sure. So if you're Nigeria, what you want to do is get Osimhen as many chances as possible.
Yeah.
Get Lookman the ball in as many kind of threatening positions as possible, and around them you need to have some semblance of a midfield, something called a defense, to just keep some stability, have some balance in the team, and then leave it to them. Like, they're way better than everyone else in the group. They can run through anyone. They can run through even the South African defense.
Mm.
Uh, so that's like what you should be doing. But instead, you're spamming as many attackers as possible, and then that puts you in this kind of position where you're not even beating Zimbabwe. So
Yeah.
yeah, all the best. All
Rough
the best with
stuff.
that.
Rough stuff. Yeah. Well, shall we move on then? Because we're gonna take pit stops all over the world in this one. So we're then going to go on to UEFA. and specifically Group I of UEFA, because the groups just kind of keep going. This is otherwise known as the group that UEFA and FIFA pretend doesn't exist,
Yes.
because Israel is in this group. Israel, fortunately for these organizations, they're currently third. So they've got a shot at qualifying, but probably won't. So that saves FIFA and UEFA from having to try take any kind of moral stand on anything, because generally their moral stand is that video that you were talking about off air of like corruption's only bad when I'm not involved. Okay, but I completely agree. So what you were saying just then, like, to me, the platonic ideal of the international team that punches above its weight is the Senegal team we had a few years ago, where you had Idrissa Gueye in defensive midfield doing absolutely everything, tackling everybody who moved, and then just spraying passes out to the wide zones, where you had Sadio Mane and Ismail Assar, just fast, skillful, multi-skilled attackers. And as a result, they just had a really stable base and they were really tough to beat and they were dangerous for absolutely everybody. The team who look like they might be well positioned to do this from UEFA is Norway, who have absolutely obliterated their group. I mean, it's an easy group, right? Because it's Israel, Estonia, Moldova, but also Italy. And Norway is just running away with it, man.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I think everyone obviously saw that 11-1 win over Moldova, but they've
Mm,
29 goals scored and 3 conceded in 6 games. So you take those away,
yeah.
that's 18 goals scored in 5 games, which is still insane. And that that's like 3-0 wins over Italy, for example.
Yeah.
Just now 5-0 against Israel. Yeah, I mean these guys are a serious team, and obviously we know there's some great Norwegian players, but do you remember the last time they played a major, like the men's team played a major tournament?
Isn't it like it's like last century, isn't it?
Yeah, so the last World Cup was 1998. After that, they played the 2000 Euros. That's it. They haven't been to Euros. Forget a World
Wow.
Cup. So, like, they've been struggling. And obviously, there was a period when they didn't have someone like Holland. But last few years, they've had Holland, they've had Ødegaard. Sorloth as well is now, very much kind of one of the better strikers out there. So they have had these players for a few years, but it's
Mm.
only now that they've really managed to put it all together. And I mean, it is spectacular to watch. I've got a newsletter coming out tomorrow where I'm like looking into what Norway are doing and how they've been so successful in this group. But basically, so after failing to qualify for Euro 2024, they didn't change the coach. Solbakken has been there since like December 2020, but he did kind of change the system a bit. So in like for Euro qualifying, he was kind of playing a 4-3-3. He was doing some weird stuff sometimes, like putting Sorloth at right wing. This is the kind of stuff I was talking about with Nigeria, where you're trying to do a bit too much and put people where they're not supposed to be just because they're good.
Mm.
But then what he did, they switched to more of a 4-4-2 or a 4-1-3-2 for the last Nations League and then going into the World Cup, where so you have Holland Sorloth, normal strike partnership. You have Ødegaard on the right because he has played there before. He played there for like Real Sociedad, for example,
Hmm.
and obviously he drifts inside. You have someone like Antonio Nusa, who's a very exciting winger, really great dribbler on the left. So different kinds of wingers, but you get different threat from them. And then you have a couple of decent midfielders who who are just there again to just solidify stuff, not do anything crazy. So you have like Sander Berge, for example.
Yeah.
Just a guy who's there. Patrick Berg, Martin Thorsby, these guys. One of them can push up and join the attack sometimes, but don't do anything silly, basically. And
Mm.
similarly, in like the defense, they have like a bunch of, again, they have decent guys, like pretty much everyone in the top 5 leagues, but it's like Julian Reyes and Christopher Ayer, these kinds of guys who are just
Yeah.
like just defend the ball, don't let your opponent score and kick it forward sometimes, and we'll be good. And that's basically the plan, right? It's so out of possession. They do various things. I think like Sorloth actually has been really good in this respect because obviously he can play alongside Holland, but even drops back, tracks back sometimes,
Yeah.
create like a midfield five, or even let Ødegaard go up because he's better at like leading a press alongside Holland. But they don't really press much. The main thing is compact block, drop back if you need. guys like Ayer and all are used to defending, and then boom, just hit opponents on the counter. And like when they get going, it is really like they're so fun to watch because you have obviously Holland alone is like a force of nature, and him alone being up top is like scary for any defense. But you have him running; he's usually like more central, on the last shoulder kind of thing. But then Sorloth again is excellent in this regard too, where he drifts around a fair bit. He can make runs in the right channel. He can run across to the left. They have some like counter movements which are really tough to defend against. So Sirlot's like going all over, making life difficult for opposition defenders. And on top of that, you have someone like Anthony Nusa dribbling straight at you,
Yeah.
or Ødegaard picking out a pass. And so when they get going in transition, it is really spectacular to watch. And that's how they've blown these teams apart. Like they blew Italy apart in that first half. It was 3-0. They could have scored more, never really threatened. Obviously, Italy were bad, but like if you just watch the highlights, I mean, there was that one goal where I think it was the second goal where the keeper kicks it long. Solot brings it down. Nusa kind of takes it up. Holland's just like he just makes a slight run, attracts a couple of defenders, and then Nusa runs straight to goal. Two Italian defenders crash into each other because he like jinks past them, and then he smashes it into like the top corner. So like when they get going, like I would say they're one of the most fun international teams to watch right now.
Yeah, all three of those forwards you talked about scored in that game. And then,
Yeah,
the guys you've got behind them, you've got, okay, clearly the plan here is like get Nusa, Ødegaard, Sorloth, and Haaland on the pitch as much as possible. But even behind them, you've got Oscar Bobb, you've got
yeah,
Sverre who's yet to get his international debut. You've got Strand Larsen as well.
yeah.
And then too, they've been getting a lot of change out of Thelo Asgard, who's got 4 international appearances and 5 international goals.
Yeah,
He's one
that's
of
the
the top.
Moldova tax.
Yeah, sure, but I mean like that. But he's another guy, right? As in, like he's
Yeah,
6'2", 6'3", and you've got this other guy running at your back line, and Haaland drags so many guys with him. Sorloth is so. It's it sounds really basic, but when you've just got like a bunch of massive guys running at your back line with really cleverly choreographed
yeah.
movements, it's extremely hard for teams to defend this.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly beautiful to watch. Like, I would just encourage you to just like when nothing's going on, just watch some Norway highlights. Like, just look at the strikers' runs. Look at it's just so fun to watch. But you're right about that. Like, I think the depth is like obviously besides having players like Holland and Ødegaard and all,
Hmm.
the depth is the most important because Ødegaard's been out like in this break, but Bobb's been in his place and he's been excellent. He's
Yeah.
basically done quite close to what you'd want from Ødegaard, and that's really what helps them is if you look at like similar nations of this, like you look at Sweden, right, just next to them, like they're really reliant basically on Isak and Gyökeres to make the attack work. And if those guys aren't having a good day, Sweden aren't having a good day. But like I said, with Norway, yeah, maybe Sørloth's not having a good day for whatever reason. Maybe he's injured. Just put on Strand Larsen, and he'll get you quite a good. And this is true also like deeper down the pitch, where like I said in midfield you have these different options. In defense, like no standout names, but a fair few options, so that you're not super reliant on any kind of one or two guys. Obviously,
Mm.
without Holland and Ødegaard, the team isn't as good as it is, but they're still competent. And I think that's like obviously they have that solid, simple tactical base, which I think like they can go far because they have obviously the quality they have in attack is enough to blow almost any defense apart in transition.
Yeah.
And they are good at creating that kind of a situation because of the way they defend, the way they drop back. And even they do also now, obviously like Estonia and Moldova and even Israel aren't like the highest level opposition, but even when you put a low block against them, they have a lot of ideas, like especially that's where someone like Ødegaard or Bob is particularly useful because they can just kind of jink through, operate in the tight spaces, link up and break down blocks. And they're very good at attacking with great intent with obviously all these quality attackers. So
Mm.
it's tough to defend against them either way. And then like the thing they can't do is basically like control a game by if it's like 1-0 for example and make it really quiet. Like they can try,
Sure.
with their midfielders pass it around a bit, but they don't have that quality. But on the flip side, they can simply score 2 more goals on the counter.
Mm.
So there's always that threat. And yeah, like I think especially again in international football where there's no like super tactically advanced opponents for the most part. Like if you have a good block, and if you have a real counter-attacking threat, which Norway have, and some vaguely competent possession play where you're not kicking the ball nowhere, you can do something.
Mm.
And especially in this World Cup, where because of the format, Norway are like most probably even in the draw, they'll be among the two strongest teams in the group, so they'll be on for the direct spots. But also third place can also get into the knockouts. So, like they are very likely to advance the knockouts.
Mm.
I mean, if they qualify, but like they need to beat Estonia. So I'm considering them qualified. And then I would not want to face Norway in the knockouts. Like
No.
I'm not saying they're gonna go to the final or anything, but like I think they will be a serious team, and they might cause an upset or two. So yeah, Norway are ones to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like they've had something like 58% possession through qualification, but you look at them and you think, I kind of feel like the best version of this team has less of the ball, and so when they come up against these sides who are going to want a lot of it, I think they'll be perfectly happy to play that way. I mean, the main thing for them is going to be making sure that these key players are fit. Like that is
Yeah.
the one question for them. It's
Yep.
always and it's always been the question with Haaland. It's now increasingly a question with Ødegaard, I guess. But they look great. They're really well set up. They're super fun. I think they've got a friendly against New Zealand tomorrow. So if you want to see some carnage,
The battle of the strikers.
yeah,
Erling Haaland and Christel. Haaland's not
the
playing
two best
for
strikers
11.
in the world, the two consensus
Yes.
best strikers in the world. Yeah, I'm really excited about them next season. I mean, I guess we could very briefly touch on Italy. Italy are. It does show you how tough UEFA qualification is. That Italy have got 5 wins and a loss, and are going to finish second in this, and then going to have to go through probably a very tough playoff situation, because we don't know who's going to be in the playoffs. But like, if you look at the teams who are there and thereabouts now, it's like Sweden and Turkey and Hungary and even Belgium could be there. Like, like there are tons of dangerous teams there if they can find themselves up against. Italy is like permanently in crisis. But it hasn't even really been the full Gattuso experience here either, because they're still scoring 3 goals a game. I mean, again against very weak opposition. But we're used to historically Gattuso playing very low event games. That's not really what you can do in this kind of group, and it's certainly not what we saw in the big game. Though I guess against Norway, it was like 8 shots to 6. It's just that they gave up
It was,
3 chances, conceded 3 goals.
it was also the Spalletti experience then, so that was the other part of the problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean Italy, yeah, that's all sorts of issues again. But yeah, they do look better now. But better against Estonia doesn't really count for much. And they're definitely not like it'll take a miracle for them to go past Norway. So the playoffs is guaranteed. Like you still expect them to go through the playoffs, but you never know. Like, yeah, the question with them
You
is
do.
still just their attack, because I mean they have obviously players. Reteg is still getting the goals. Moise Kean is great as well when he's there. I like they have so much quality in midfield. Defensively they should be so solid, but they like gave up 4 goals to Israel. So you're like, what the hell are you doing, guys? So like honestly, it's a difficult one to put my finger on, not least because of the coaching change and everything.
Yeah.
But it's just, like at this point I'm just like it's the Italian, like what they were last World Cup was 2010 for them. So
They've
yeah,
missed the last 2.
is it 2 or 3? Was there
I
2014?
thought it was 2 that they missed.
Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, look, I was too young to remember, is my excuse. But
It's not good though. It's not good though.
yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. And like that, yeah, you'd expect them to get through that. But if they can't get through this group, I mean, look, Norway are in incredible form. So like maybe it would just be difficult. But you do worry about them in that playoff process, because it is genuinely very difficult. And yeah, I don't know, like you come up against Sweden or whatever on the wrong day and they can do something against you. So not fully convinced about Italy's prospects. Right. To finish us off today, we're going to move over to CONMEBOL, where, look, is it exciting? I don't know. Like, it's done at least. Like, we know what's happening. So it's not us having to go through like 6 different permutations. But the teams that we wanted to look at, we wanted to look at Ecuador first, right? Because Ecuador finished second. They're behind Argentina in qualification. Just 1 point ahead of all the other teams that qualify, but still finishing second.
I mean, they also had a 3-point deduction, so it's actually 4 points
That's
by,
true.
by game. So,
And what's impressive about them, I mean, is the defensive record. The defensive record, 5 goals conceded in 18 qualifying games. Now, admittedly, I think that CONMEBOL, I wonder if the style of CONMEBOL like benefits them here, because like it is actually quite a low event qualification process. You do see a lot of games where there are sub 20 shots, and Ecuador have like 10 shots a game for themselves and 9 shots for their opponents, and they can just muddy things up against, especially because if you look at Ecuador's squad, if you look at the most valuable Ecuadorian players in the world, I think there are 5 players who are valued at over 20 million euros, according to transfer marks. 4 of them are defenders and 1's a defensive midfielder. So it's Estupiñán, Hincapié, Ordóñez, Pacho, and Caicedo. And then I think they'll be really hoping that Kendry Paez gets a lot of regular football this season, because the attack is 35-year-old Enner Valencia, who has 6 goals in qualifying despite missing 2 out of 4 penalties. It is... They are going to be... They're a team you don't want to play at the World Cup, but they are just going to make it miserable. Like, you are going to have a horrible 90 minutes against them. They did it against Colombia, and they've beaten Colombia and Argentina in qualification. Like, nobody's had a good time playing them.
no, I mean, I think, was it this Monday or last Monday? Well, no, this is Monday, so it can't be this Monday. It's only last Monday. But Ted was saying, like, when you're like scouting, South American leagues, you're not going to be entertained by the football. Like, it's not fun. It's just a bunch of guys kicking each other a lot. That's often what CONMEBOL qualifying is.
Yeah.
So then that's what Ecuador has specialized in, clearly. But I mean, yeah, you're right. Like, you look at the squad, and it does make sense why they're doing this. Because, I mean, obviously, Caicedo's amazing. We don't need to talk about him. Pacho, everyone knows for PSG. But even someone like Joel Ordóñez is really an excellent defender. Like, he's really well-rounded. And so what Ecuador can do is, because often with these kinds of teams who like don't really have an attack, like it's literally one guy, what happens is, you're forced into low block too much, you sink too deep, and then, teams can break you down, you give up, you make a mistake, you give up chances. But the key thing with Ecuador is they manage not to sink deep. Like, even though they don't kind of dominate possession, they can stay in a mid block quite well. They can keep the defensive line high up because they have these guys. So because you have someone like Ordóñez and Pacho at centre back, or Hincapié, all of these guys are, one, pretty good. I mean, certainly Pacho and Ordóñez, like, fairly tall, pretty good in the air.
Yeah.
But more importantly, 2 have really good pace to recover and like track runs in behind. So they can stay high up without giving up much and without coming under too much pressure, like without being penned in. So this really helps them with this excellent defensive record. And on top of that, they're not inspiring to watch in possession. Like, it's a lot of passing around. Like, the fullbacks are often very conservative. They're not going up. There's not a lot happening.
They've scored 14. Options. That's the other side, right? You're like, 5 goals against in 18 games, amazing. 14 goals for in 18 games. Oh dear. Like this is like Paraguay scored 14 goals in qualifying. It's fewer goals than Bolivia in qualifying. Like, this is not positive stuff. So I mean, this is a team where it's kind of like, maybe they see an opportunity, or maybe they get a set piece, or somebody produces something magical. And if that can be Kendry, then great. But outside of him, there are a lot of young players. There are a lot of young players in this squad. So it's totally possible that somebody like catches fire, because we've got a ton of guys. There are guys as well who are a few guys in Belgium, and also a ton of youngsters who are still playing in Ecuador. So who knows what there is to come out of this squad?
Yeah, I mean, there's this guy called Kevin Rodriguez. I think he's like 24 or now. Let me check. Mm-hmm. But I think he's the guy who can step up. Well, at least right. I mean, he looks closest to the guy who can step up to replace Valencia, because he's also like a pretty tall striker. He plays for Union Saint-Gilloise. He's 25 now, and I think he's pretty well rounded. Like, obviously, you can kick it long to him, but he's not necessarily the strongest in the air. like for USG actually, he does kind of link up a fair bit. So he does kind of drop to offer, receive the ball, pass around a bit. So different profile to Valencia, like not necessarily someone who runs in behind a lot, but I think he can fit in like a more possession based, slower possession style, which they often have, link up and then eventually get into the box for well, hopefully across eventually. But yeah, I mean, as you say, they're going to need someone to step up, or like scam a penalty or whatever, which is obviously entirely possible in a World Cup. So,
Yeah.
like you say, like I don't think they'll be fun to face, but like Norway will be fun to watch. These guys maybe not so much.
Yeah, we gave you one fun team. Shall we wrap up with a team then that should be fun, but
Yes.
around which there are question marks? Brazil came in fifth in the group. Naturally, this was seen as a disaster. Ancelotti has just come in as the coach there. Came in back in like May, but has managed 2 games for them, I think, like
It's
serious
like yeah,
games. So
yeah,
whatever. But like the attack is kind of okay, like behind Argentina, Colombia through qualifying, fifth best defense. But this is still a squad that is seen as the most valuable in Latin America. Transfermarkt have it rated as the fourth most valuable worldwide, ahead of Spain right now. And player for player, you look at it against Argentina and you think it's probably slightly better balanced, like I would say overall, especially at the back, it looks a bit stronger. I mean, like Argentina, no real fullbacks to speak of. But and as well, I think they will be thinking it's still the center forward zone is still an issue for them and has
yeah.
been a weird spot for them for a long time. And I think they would probably love it if some solution arrived for that this season. Whether it's like we've talked about Martinelli going to center forward for Arsenal, or if Igor Thiago, who's never played for the national team, who
Wow, that's
continues
a
to
good
look
shout.
excellent for Brentford, that would be really interesting. But to me, the thing about Ancelotti is you're like, Ancelotti's not going to do some weird, overambitious nonsense. Like that is the positive of Ancelotti. The downside of Ancelotti is that the team is probably not going to be more than the sum of their parts. Like they are going to play up to their talent level, I think. And that's great most of the time when you're Brazil. But when they come up against Spain, England, France, who maybe have more talent, like what is that going to look like? Like that to me is the whole question around Ancelotti Brazil.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But I think they did go in for him because before they had guys who were trying to do a bit too much and
Yeah.
it went really badly. So, like, let's just get a guy. We have good players. All
Mm.
we need is a guy who stands there and gets them to, do their job. We'll be fine.
Mm.
So, I mean, I get it from that perspective. Yeah, I mean, for one, there's just like so much depth, right? Like, just off the top of my head, Vinicius, Rodrigo, Martinelli. Now Estevao, he's a serious
Rafinha.
prospect already. Yeah, Cunha, and then there's like because again, as you said, like we haven't really seen like a serious game from Ancelotti, but for the most part, there was a couple times he played like Vinicius nominally as a striker,
Mm.
but for the most part, he's preferred to have a guy who has experience there, like Joao Pedro or Richarlison,
Mm.
which yeah, I think from that perspective, the Igor Thiago shout does look really interesting. So I think that's the main question: is he going to do something like Vinicius or Martinelli or even Cunha at striker and two wingers around them,
Mm.
or is he going to go for just a guy like Richarlison and then have people behind him? So that's the one main question. I mean, for the rest of the team, as you said, like they have quite good options all around. I think in midfield, Bruno Guimaraes is key because he's
Mm.
often given like a lot of freedom to move around and connect the team, basically get the ball forward and then feed the attackers who are obviously given a lot of freedom to do what they can. And it's also worth noting that so Ancelotti, Carlo's son, Davide is his assistant at the national team,
Mhm.
but is also coaching for John Textor's Botafogo actually in Brazil. So they have called up a few like depth options locally, which I mean they have decent, but I don't think they're not going to start for the most part. You have guys like Marquinhos, who are quite experienced
Mhm.
and still not that old. Like he's still 31, so it's probably a question at some point, but not for this World Cup. So they're all, I think, well settled. I mean, Casemiro still often starts in defensive midfield, but again, internationally, as long as he makes tackles, it's all good. So yeah, like I think
I
rest
personally
of
would not do that, Neil. Like, I just look at it and I think, okay, moving beyond Casemiro will be. I know he's the captain, right? So it's like hard to kind of get rid of it. But you think an Edison Bruno Guimaraes midfield with the
I would
prospect
like to
long
see
term of
it.
Andre Santos, you think, okay, this is really really good stuff. And then, but I feel like every international team has one guy like this who hangs
Exactly.
around, and you're just like, we play with 10. And that's what we're doing. And you hope that guy is not too costly. But the problem is, a defensive midfielder is quite a costly position if he's, for example, one of the slowest players in the Premier League. But the slowest player in the Premier League at international level is kind of fine.
Exactly.
It's
I
not
mean, yeah,
disastrous.
exactly. Like, I think they can make do with him. Is the point. So, like, it's all fine elsewhere. As you say, the question is, the question is obviously one, what do they do with the striker? How does that look? And
Hmm.
two, like you say, what can they do when the big game comes? Because that's where they faltered in basically every World Cup recently in recent memory. So like you can't really expect for any tactical magic from Ancelotti. So what you really need is like through the group stage, you have like you've everything sorted. You have a good first choice 11. You have decided what you're doing at striker,
Mm.
and it's all clicking. Because I think if it clicks, like this is obviously an insanely scary attack to face.
Yeah.
So you can do all your tactical shenanigans you want, but like if you have Vinicius, Rafinha, Cunha, whoever, Rodrigo running at you, it's not a fun time.
Yeah.
So if they do click, which again with like this is the difficult part with Ancelotti, right? Is like he may get them to click, or he might like stick to trying to find a striker, and maybe it doesn't work. But there is a possibility where they do click, and then they look fun. So
Mm.
and good, obviously. So yeah, it's like you say, it's very tough to say right now. But I mean, like they will entertain either way. Like either it'll be
Yeah.
a disaster, or it'll be great football. But like they'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think that I'm looking forward to the World Cup, having gone through some of these games.
Wow.
It's nice that when we have some teams coming to the World Cup who are genuinely like not new to the tournament, but feel like a novelty, like Norway. And when we also get
I
some of
mean,
these other great teams, maybe who are kind of in transition or working out what they are, like it gives a lot of opportunities. Unfortunately, every 4 years, they're like, guys, we've had an amazing idea. We're going to change the format. It's
more
always
teams.
always an absolute. Well, this is the thing, Neil. 2030 World Cup. You and I are here. India versus Zimbabwe, the worst international game of all time. But I don't know.
Five
It's
total shots.
look, some of these players maybe you would not have seen a World Cup in previous generations. So it's nice that we're gonna see some of them there, and the
And also
diversity
just
of style as well.
yeah, and just like I mean, we didn't have this on the agenda, but like obviously it's not good to keep they may be doing too much, but it is fun to see teams like Uzbekistan,
Yeah,
possibly Benin, Cape Verde. These guys, it is really fun to see them. So like, FIFA bad, but am I entertained? Yes, I am.
I can't wait to watch games that are being played in completely semi-rural parts of the United States, where 12 people have shown up on horses to watch Cap Verde play
I would
play
so love to be
Uzbekistan.
there. I would so love to be the 13th guy there, but like Trump's guys will come and get me. But like maybe if it's in Canada, I'll think about it. Cape Verde,
Yeah,
Uzbekistan, I will be there.
yeah, that's the rule. It's like you go to Mexico, you go to Canada.
Yeah, and
I'm afraid I'm
ignore the
afraid
part in
the
the middle.
I'm afraid the US is off limits right now. Well, thank you very much, Neil, for running us through that. And thank you to everybody at home for joining us. As we said at the top, please do make sure that you subscribe to Variance Betting, subscribe to the newsletter as well. Neil obviously writes regularly for the newsletter. Neil, you can also be found on social media. That's right.
Yes, at Sharat Neel or Blue Sky Twitter is the place to go if you want to get the early track for such illustrious and frankly entertaining stories as whatever the hell is going on in Group C of the African qualifiers, or Uzbekistan, or all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can also just check flight tracker apps if you if you want to see what the latest drama is in CAF qualifying. Thank you very much for being here with us today. We really do appreciate it. Please do make sure that you drop your questions in the comments below. If you're listening to us as an audio podcast, that you can come and tweet those questions at us, and we will try and gather them all up. And please do keep your eyes peeled for the Patreon that will be dropping very, very soon. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you next time. Bye bye.